this should have existed. Like, this should already be on the market. But we should have something that would help these refugees integrate into their new host societies better, and kind of remove the stigma of refugees being a burden, and show that instead they can be a very huge asset for their new host societies.
Hey, welcome to the Business Narrative. It's me, Wajiha Nadeem. Today our guest is Heba Al Heraki. So, Heba, how are you?
I'm good, Wajiha. Thank you so much. How about you? I hope you're doing
I'm
well.
also doing good. Thank you so much for joining us today. So Heba, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about like Bevol and what's your role and Bashar Al Heraki role in this organization?
Sure. Thank you for having me, firstly. And Viva, I'll try to kind of summarize it. I'll probably take most of the time on this question because it's really the meat of this discussion. Viva is basically a social media platform, but it's specialized. So we have like generic social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. These have like generic content. So, but on the other hand, we have some that are specialized, like LinkedIn, for example. LinkedIn is specialized in networking business activities. It has all the other features of like posting, commenting, sharing, following, etc. But it also has other features that are in a specific area. So we're the same, basically. We're kind of like the LinkedIn of volunteering and community work. This is how we kind of try to put it to make it easy to understand. We have, again, all the features of like posting, commenting, sharing, following, etc. But we also have some tabs specific to the community, like community work and volunteering field. So we have mainly 3 user segments. The individual volunteers who want to devote their time and effort and give back to their communities. And then we have the nonprofits. This includes governmental institutions, NGOs, and the rest, and volunteering teams. These can request volunteers. So they can say, for example, we need 5 volunteers in the field of translation from this day to this day for this amount of hours. And they can put any other details and qualifications, and basically announce what we call a mission. So they announce a volunteering mission. And then the 3rd user segment is for-profit companies. These cannot request volunteers because obviously that's not volunteering, like if you're for profit. But they can announce discounts or like free products and services, and with that fulfill their CSR, corporate social responsibility, and basically support volunteerism. And that's usually they are excited for that because it makes them look good. Like, it makes these companies look good to be supporting community work and volunteers, and so on. So these are our 3 main user segments. I can speak a bit more on like the specifics of how that looks like. We have like a missions tab. You can click there and then filter through and choose whatever mission works for you. You can filter like the specific field if you were interested in helping out in translation, the example I just gave, or in media, or your expertise in more is on in the medical field. You can basically choose whatever field you're interested in volunteering in, whatever days you're available in. You can choose all of these filters and then just choose the best mission for you, apply to that. The nonprofit that announced that specific mission gets a notification. They see all the volunteers who applied. They review their profiles. They can contact them for further information. They either accept or reject these applications. Both parties evaluate each other, like in terms of like the performance, the commitment, being on time, etc. And then the volunteer gets like points, what we call like, and this is the gamification element for us. The more volunteering you do, the more points you have, and that like gets added automatically to your balance on the international volunteering card. And the higher volunteering card you have, then you can basically benefit from the company's services and discounts more. They might be basically saying, oh, we'll give 50% to the highest class, like the perfection class, and then 20% to the volunteering class. So basically, you're when you're a more of a higher class, you might be able to benefit from more like free and discounted products and services from our member companies. So this is in a nutshell how the platform works. My role, me and my father, Bashar Al Heraki, were both co-founders. We also have my brother, so it's kind of like a family startup, which is it's not exactly that, but we hear a lot about family businesses, like already established businesses, but we don't hear a lot about family startups. It's really interesting and has really interesting dynamics, and I'm loving it, to be honest. Um, so this is like kind of in brief my role in it. I'm working on business development as well. And yeah, that's kind of like in a nutshell. I hope the answer to the question. Let me know if there's any follow up you have in mind.
Like, what led you, like you and your family, into the public work and civil society organization?
Well, to be honest, at the very beginning, it was the start of like the Syrian refugee crisis. Us being Syrians, and I held the refugee status for a couple of years in Turkey too. So we resonate with that a lot, and we were thinking, oh, we want something, and that was my father's idea. To be honest, like the credit, I can't take credit for that. His idea was um, like we should have something that would help these refugees integrate into their new host societies better, and kind of remove the stigma of refugees being a burden, and show that instead they can be a very huge asset for their new host societies. So that was like, and then the idea was like, why only refugees, and why only Syria? Why just not make it for everyone and everywhere? Because we realized there was a need around the world. Like everyone was saying, oh my God, how come this idea has never been like implemented before? Or like it sounds, it's one of those ideas that you feel like, and I feel like a lot of ideas that really succeed start that way. People are like, oh, I thought this should have existed, like this should already be on there on the market, but it simply is not. And then you bring it up and everyone is like excited about it, and wants to benefit from it. So that was kind of the start. But obviously then, for me at least, I started to realize even other aspects to how this is really important. Not just from like I'm really passionate about effectiveness. I like efficiency. I don't like laziness and lameness, or like wasting resources, and I see that a lot in the field of community work, unfortunately. And community work, please bear in mind, this includes everything from the environmental cost to elderly care to people with disabilities, animal welfare. All of those are community work, everything in between. So I really see that, unfortunately, NGOs, a lot of NGOs, a lot of like nonprofits don't feel the burden of, and that connects obviously to much deeper problems like transparency and whatnot, and corruption and whatnot. But you still have like that element of not being connected with other organizations and other people who are working in the same field, and you just reinvent the wheel. You repeat things that have already been done instead of building off of them. And you don't feel the pressure that, for example, companies, like employees in companies feel. If employees in companies are not efficient, their boss is going to be like, no, you're not efficient, you're fired. But if you're in community work, this money is like coming from the community, from people, from donors, and you don't feel the pressure to be as efficient, which is really unfortunate, because these are even more important than kind of for-profit endeavors. These are like what holds our society together. So I really like that element. I guess in the next questions I might also mention about the kind of how it's a digital, so like a humane technology or a humane social media. This is a concept that was first developed by like Tristan Harris and his they have like an organization called they called it Time Spent Well, and then they changed it to Human Technology. So it's really, I think, fits well into this user and human centered social media. It's not, we're not trying to generate, our business model is not built on increasing screen time so that we increase like ad revenue. This is what most social media platforms are based on. Like they just want you hooked to the screen so that you can see more ads and they can get more money. And that's not a human centric approach. That is like ad centric approach. Like they don't care if you're being there and watching things that affect your mental health badly, that cause polarization, that they don't care about the kind of like repercussions of that. They just care about you being hooked to the screen, even if that comes at the cost of your own mental health, of the society's own benefit and wellness. So I think that's an important element as well that we're like starting to realize more and more. But yeah, this is kind of like in a nutshell what I would say about the motivation or the passion about this field of like community work and volunteering. We're trying to kind of go on a meta level and organize the field, make it more efficient and make it more connected and productive.
Like that's really expressive. Like you are doing is a work that like adds value in the society. So how it feels?
Well, it definitely feels like satisfying again in the element of like in the sense that I really hate it when I see the inefficiency and I see people wanting to do something but not being able to kind of do exactly what they have in mind or be in the communities they have in mind. And maybe that's a good like segue to mention that we also have like what basically like specialized platforms within the mother platform. So we have like sub platforms or subdomains. uh, One is in the elderly care, one is in the environmental field, one is for people with disabilities. So you also have these like really robust communities where you can feel so much belonging. Like I can speak for myself. I really care a lot about the environmental issue, and I really love it when I see people around me who also care about that. And it's like a community, like in that field, and we're working together, and it's just makes it easier. We have other platforms, but it's not specifically tailored uh, with community work and volunteering in mind. It's not specifically tailored for this purpose. It's just, you know, like all the other social media platforms is just for for connection. But this is like we get to work. Like this is where we actually, and all the features tailor and cater for that. Like all the missions and points, it's specifically designed to make it exciting, to make volunteering and community work exciting. So it definitely feels very satisfying to be able to kind of counter that and do something about this lack or inefficiency, as I mentioned, that I personally see in the field.
Like as a young woman, we faced many challenges in our workplaces, on like in the society. So have you ever faced this challenge?
Well, definitely, especially as a like young looking. I'm not just like a. I'm 24, but I get a lot of comments that I look 16. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, what year?" And
Yeah, that's true.
I'm like, I just graduated from my master's, and like, whoa. So that even adds a bit that you don't maybe get taken as seriously. That happens to probably women in general, but then like being younger, that like adds to it. But you know, I see a lot of other places that actually want like women co-founders, and they want to see people like me in the business realm. So um and the dynamics of like having a family startup is really helpful because like, you know, I'm not, and I don't feel like I have to go against these dynamics or be like, no, I'm like, I want to be just on my own and like an independent. Like I don't need to, like I'm leaning on to the people who I believe are also like passionate about what I'm passionate about, and this includes family members and friends. So I'm leaning on those like support networks, and that really is very helpful. So overall, I'm not upset with like the current status quo for me. As a young woman, I'm thriving, and I'm having these support networks, and I'm leaning on them.
Like as well, like for me, my point of view is like this is a man dominating society. So how do you feel like how to survive as a young girl or as a young woman? Can you give us some tips?
Yeah, so again, I would say lean onto the support and the support networks and system that you have. You don't have to fight against them, and because I guess there is like a sense or an idea that you have to be on your own and you have to struggle in order to like be successful, I guess. But that's not necessarily the case. You can already have, like, you can lean onto these support networks and systems. You don't have to fight against them, or you don't have to consider them evil because of whatever like idea is out there. you can use them to your benefit and to their benefit. The issue is not just, whose name is there. Like, it's not, for me, it's not really like, oh, I want my name to be there. That more I feel is like of a selfish and arrogant like endeavor. But no, it's just like, what do we do? Like, I want to make something. I want to do something out of this. So I feel like the main advice I would give is like, lean onto the support networks and systems you have. Do not kind of try to fight against them or like resist being helped out, I guess. Yeah.
Like it's like just believe in yourself and your
Of
work
course, of
as a
course.
girl.
That is, of course, that was 100% is like, that's for me is like taken for granted. Because if you don't believe in yourself, why are you out there? You wouldn't be out there in the first place if you don't think that I have something to contribute, or I have something to add. And that is something that every single human being should believe. Like, you're created like by God for a reason. You're not there because, because of a random kind of, like, it's, you're there for a reason and you have so much to give. That's like, for me, is again taken for granted.
Okay, let's play a rapid fire round. You have to only select one option: coffee or tea.
See,
Same.
I'll do it.
Favorite app on your phone?
Bevol, obviously. That's one of the obvious answers.
Early bird or night owl?
Aspiring early bird.
Oh, that's nice. Favorite business book?
Well, I'll say the favorite business. This is a tricky question because, I'm not really into reading business books, but I'll just kind of say that, like, I even forgot the title of the book, but it was like the advices, like a couple of, I don't 100 advices. I'm not even sure about the number, but that something like along those lines.
Okay, your go-to comfort food?
Pasta.
Oh, nice. Same. First thing you do when you wake up?
I check the time. Like, I'm always feeling on a hurry. I'm like, as if someone is chasing me.
What's your hidden talent?
My hidden talent is I can speak Turkish. I guess that's something that not everyone
That's
knows.
nice. What was the most memorable and funny moment you faced in your career or in your life?
Related to the platform itself, I remember like in the very early days, we used the platform. Me and a couple of friends, we basically taught. We had like an NGO called Mutliva in Turkey. They were basically an orphanage, and we contacted them. They announced a mission on Bevol. We joined it around like seven ladies. Like, we were all from the, you know, like young ladies, and we joined it. And we were all, by the way, like non-Turk, so we were all like either refugees or migrants. And we were teaching these Turkish orphan kids in a time where racism was increasing, and unfortunately it still is increasing. But that really made us feel so good about, like, and I can share later on some of the posts that like my friends who volunteered with me were saying. Like, one of them was saying, for the first time, there's a Turkish person, in this case a kid, not asking me, like, when I say that I'm Syrian, he's not saying, or this XYZ nationality, he or she is not replying by, oh, okay, it's okay, kind of thing. But they're like curious, and they're like, oh, tell me more. This curiosity is like more of a kid's curiosity. A lot of other ladies felt that, again, like this issue of removing the stigma of refugees being a burden, and instead being an added value. So I guess that is really memorable. Like, that experience, we did it for like a couple of 2 months, almost 2 months, and it was really memorable. Like, those kids, I had girls, some other volunteers had a boys class, but those girls for me were like my girls. Like, they were so cute, and it was such a, again, like, powerful and passionate experience, because we were like, that nationality element just went out of the window. We were just human to human. So that's very memorable for me.
Like you are a very ambitious girl. Like what inspires you to keep moving forward?
I'd say definitely my father, because he's like also kind of the main person in the platform. So he's definitely my main inspiration. My brother is also very inspirational to me. my family and friends in general, those support networks and systems that I mentioned, these are my inspiration, my support and my inspiration.
Nice. Okay, let's talk about like your involvement with Doha debates. Like I
Sure.
see you're promoting like open discussions and free thoughts and speech. Have you ever faced any controversy?
This is definitely something that like might there is of course like controversy in talking about these issues very openly, and exposing realities, as you were mentioned, like we were talking before the podcast. Like there's an element of like, if you tell the truth very bluntly, it's gonna kind of like bring you trouble unless you make it as a joke. It usually does not work well. But at the end of the day, this is something we have to do, and especially for me, someone who's really interested in like community work and what, I don't think we transparency is such a huge element. So there is a controversy, but we have to battle it. We cannot just be like, okay, let's ignore the realities, and because that, and again, like goes to the inefficiency. Like if you're not even battling with the real causes of the problem, are like the corruption, the lack of transparency, then what are you doing? So yeah.
Nice. That's really awesome. So, have you find like faced like any burden or controversy or exposing the realities to everyone may affect your career?
Yes, I'm aware of that. It may well affect my career, but at the end of the day, again, like I'm trying to balance these two out. I'm trying to be like professional in my own like business career, but I'm also very passionate about, again, like efficiency and seeing what the real causes of problems are. So, and to me, these are like just one like one of two pieces of the same thing, like parts and parcel of the same thing. So I cannot, I just, even though it may affect my career, I know on the long run this is what I need to do, and I'm ready to do it.
Like you had a very like great experience with Doha debates and like other speeches. So like how do you feel like everyone is heard during the speech or discussion?
I think that's a really great question, and I think everyone would benefit from like such an advice. And we learned something like in the ambassadors program, which is like a really nice. You can check all of the products of the head debates. They have town halls, podcasts. I must say we have because I'm part of there as well now. So, but there we learned something called basically like interest focused listening and understanding. So instead of you trying to and like just p- uh, put people in boxes depending on their positions, say, oh, this is a liberal, this is a feminist, this is a conservative, this is like right wing, left wing, etc., instead of trying to think about positions of like, oh, this person says XYZ, don't get stuck too much on the labels. Go to the deeper level, which is interest. What does this person want? Why are they saying what they're saying? What is the kind of like, if for example it might be someone who has struggled in their life with like I don't know, male family members or male figures in their life, like a woman, and having been repressed or silenced by them, and therefore the reason why she's very passionate about, for example, say feminism, and she might be like don't get stuck, but understand her interest and her background in the story, that she has gone through X, Y, and Z, and therefore she's saying this. And how can we together? Because I also want that. She also wants that. I'm sure even men in society need healthy. Like it's not like a battle between the two genders. Like it's not like women want women to be miserable. Like of course for men
Mhm.
in society, it's good for women to be healthy and like in terms of the mind, the body, and everything. Like it's just society. We're both like two parts of the same society. So it's not, so I'm sure everyone is interested in having in women's rights, and having women being heard and contributing to the society and bringing the best out to the world. Like that's something that is just, again, like so taken for granted for every sane person, for every like reasonable person. So I would say, again, like this is just an example, but the main thing is don't get stuck with the labels or the positions that is like stated. Go to the deeper level and try to understand why this person is saying what they're saying. What do they want? And how you want that as well. We have the same interests. We all want the same things at the end of the day, unless we're like a very I don't know, like a billionaire greedy person might not want this the same as the rest of the population. But for the majority, the overwhelming majority, we want the same things. And let's think about how we can get those things that we all want instead of like getting stuck with the labels.
That's impressive. Oh, is there any productivity hack you can't live without?
Hmm. I guess I cannot like I can't. I'm a teamwork person. Like I don't like doing things alone. I don't feel motivated when I'm alone. So I really like it when I kind of create. Like for example, I'm now studying for a GRE exam for the PhD applications, and I just went to the Facebook groups and like. And I was like, I'm looking for a GRE study buddy. Like, I need to, like, this is just an example, but generally, I'm much more productive with people doing the same thing as I'm doing. So and that goes back to the kind of support systems and networks and leaning on them instead of like fighting and being like, no, I'm going to be on my, like, no, for me, I don't like being on my own. I'm much more productive when I'm with people who share my passion and who share my vision. So yeah, I try to surround myself with people who are like-minded. That's my main like hack, I'd say.
Okay, for those like listening who aspire to be entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur like you,
Yeah.
one bestest piece of advice you think that they want to hear?
Sure. So not to sound like a broken record and repeating the support systems and network, but that is really important. But putting that aside, like having mentioned that, I'd also kind of probably say that you have to figure out your priorities first. That like the priorities issue is like we take it for granted. Like yes, of course, like I know my priorities, but to take time to actually like for me take rearranging my priorities took me like an entire existential crisis. Like I started kind of like from the zero point of like, oh, is there God? I know this might sound irrelevant, but actually that was how it looked like for me. And it took me 2 years to know what my like what do I care about the most? Like do I care about like and that's why I started doing this. Like I went through an existential crisis. I was like, if there's God, if there's a hereafter, then that's definitely going to be one of my priorities. If not, then I'll just enjoy life, quote unquote, and just like do whatever is. But because now I care about that element, the kind of spiritual hereafter element, I know that I need to work not for like because I want to gain money per se. Like that's yes, that's important for everyone, but that's not my main priority. And that really shapes the entire track you take. It might be money for you. Like it's okay if it's money. Like just know what your priorities are because you might think, oh, you might want go down that track of like wanting just money and fame and those kind of what I would call the materialistic like goals. But then you might regret it after you go through it and you're like, oh, it wasn't really worth it. So I'm just like, think about it from the beginning. Is it really worth it? Is it not? That's very, very important. And that shapes again like your track, how you spend your time, and all sorts of things.
That's a really good advice. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this discussion. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you so much, Wajih. It was really nice for me as well, and I hope the listeners benefit even a tiny little bit from it.
Sure, definitely they will.